Hi, everybody. I'm Dave. So today's topic is one that continues to come to the forefront with the pandemic. Even though the pandemic seems to be waning a little bit, working in a toxic environment is not waning at all. As a matter of fact, we're seeing an increase on it. Recently, I did a video here on YouTube on gaslighting, and one of the people that commented underneath the video was that she was gaslighted by her boss in a toxic work environment. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But what does a toxic work environment look like? It's an environment where you are not heard, seen, you're not respected. Many times in a toxic workplace environment, you'll see a lot of cliques. You'll see a lot of people gathering around, and especially when it comes to upper management, gossiping. If you're working in an environment where upper management is gossiping, you are in one of the most toxic work environments ever. And I've got a list that I'm going to read to you. I'm going to pick it up right now and read some of this to you because what I have received over the last 4 years of people working in these type of environments blows my mind. So what are some signs that you might be working in a toxic environment? Number one, advancement of only a select few people. We see this all the time where you might be working your butt off, you could be doing great work, and when an advancement comes up, you're overlooked over and over and over again. Now, you might be overlooked because of a lack of experience, a lack of effort. There may be reasons why you're overlooked. But if you go deep and you examine with another professional, not just yourself, all of your work habits, all of the end results of your work, and you're considerably or constantly, I should say, overlooked for advancement, you're in a toxic environment. Next, I just mentioned earlier, gossip among management. It's not just gossip amongst people in the lower level, but it's the mini managers, the vice presidents, the president of the company, the leaders who are supposed to be the role models. If they're gossiping, it's a pure toxic environment. A fear of speaking up. This is a big one, a massive one. You're afraid to give your opinion on a project. You're afraid to give your opinion on anything that has to do with your work responsibilities. I'm not talking about going outside of your work responsibilities, but if you have a fear of speaking up, you're in a toxic environment. A fear of retaliation if you do speak up. Maybe you've said a couple times, you've shared with your manager or upper management that you have concerns over A, B, C, D, or E, and then you're retaliated against. Oh, my Lord, extremely toxic environment. High turnover rate. This is probably one of the biggest ones, right? Where you see people coming through the door. It's a windmill, in and out, in and out. You already know it's a toxic environment. As a matter of fact, during the interview, these are questions that I will train people that I'm working with to ask. When was the last person in this position? How long did they last for? What did they do really well? What did they not do so well that made them leave? Who was the person before that? And I know you're going to put the manager on the hot seat, but that's okay. You want to know if the position that you're applying for, there has been a massive turnover. You've got to figure out why. And is it worth the risk, right? A lack of integrity with management. In other words, they say one thing and do another. That's another incredibly powerful sign of a toxicity in the workplace. And it is not uncommon. As crazy as this sounds, there's a lot of upper level management that are extremely toxic when it comes to this. They play a lot of games, which I'll get into in a second. What are the causes of a toxic workplace? It's all top down. It is all top down. The lower rung cannot create a toxic environment unless it's accepted by the upper rung management. And upper rung management is usually the cause of a toxic work environment. I'll tell you a great story that happened a couple years ago. I had a surgeon come to me from another state, and he called me and he said he was going to be in town on vacation and he wanted to just do one session. He said he might do more. He wanted to see how one went. So he came in. He had 15 employees in the operating room. And I asked him how long he had them. And he said, well, the turnover is pretty consistent, but these 15 I've had for probably the last 2 years. And I said, what's the morale like? He looked at me, he goes, David, they stink. And I said, what do you mean they stink? He said, they do. He goes, I've got 15 people. I've got to correct them all the time. And he said, it's a madhouse in there. So as he went through and started to explain the madhouse part of it, I was getting this picture that it may not be the 15 people that's his staff. And the turnover rate that he told me about for the years prior told me a lot about upper management, top-down management, right? So at the end of it, he goes, what do you think? And I said, Doc, you may not be happy to hear this, but everything in a family household is top-down. Everything in a business is top-down. Everything in the operating room is top down. He was not happy at all. He said, are you saying I'm the problem? I'm saying, Doc, it has to be top down. There's no way that you could have the turnover you have if it was everyone else's fault. And there's no way you can have the dissension in the 15 people working with right now if it was all their fault. He said, I don't like this answer at all. I don't think you're onto anything that I should know. I need help. I said, Doc, that's why I'm being honest with you. He said, I'll consider coming back. I said, great. The very next day, we got a text message. My office did. He signed up for, I don't know, it was 8 or 12 sessions. I forget what it was. And we worked through it. And one of the things that I did with him is that I had him before he went into the office every day, because he realized that he came in with a bad attitude. He was always looking for errors. He wasn't looking to compliment people. He was only looking for errors. That's a toxic environment, right? So I had him sit in the car, and there's something called cognitive behavioral therapy. Now you'll see this band I have on my wrist, right? This is part of cognitive behavioral therapy. Now it's top down. He's the top dog. What I had him do is he sat in the car every time before he went into work, and he would regulate his emotions by snapping the band, because he was always in a bad mood. I'm going to go into work, and this person's going to screw up this, and this person's going to screw up that. I mean, he was projecting all this negativity. So I had him get into a place, and the way cognitive behavioral therapy works is when you notice a thought that is not healthy, you snap the band, and then you say this words, cancel that thought, and then you say the words, I am free. Now we go through that until he got himself into a neutral mindset. In other words, he's going to walk in the door without any negative thoughts, not ready to blame someone for doing something that hadn't even happened yet, right? Within 30 days, his staff was coming to him one by one saying, Doc, can I meet with you for a few minutes? And they were all saying the same thing. There's been such a change in the environment. Can you tell us what you're doing? And he kept saying, nothing, go back to work, go back to work. And finally, after, I don't know, it was the 5th or 6th person came in, he had a team meeting. He said, I'm working with a counselor. He introduced me to this thing called cognitive behavioral therapy. I do it every time I come into work. I do it when I come back from lunch. I get my mind in a neutral zone. I realize I've been highly judgmental. I realize I've been incredibly irritable. I realize I've been incredibly impatient. And the other thing I realize is I rarely give any of you compliments. So I'm doing the work on myself with this counselor, and it's starting to work. Do you know, within the next several months, he was training everyone on what I trained him to do with cognitive behavioral therapy, and they turned that toxic environment around. So it's possible, but it does come top down. And then with gaslighting, oh my Lord. So I worked with this woman that was considering leaving a position, and after our work, she did leave it. Her boss would constantly tell her, you're the best in this position. You're amazing. We're so fortunate to have you. And then the very next day, he'd be getting down on her it was unnecessary to get down on her for a minor error or something she may have forgotten to do that was minor in nature. So she was on this incredible roller coaster, and she was saying to him, I've been here for several years. You've talked about advancement. I've been looking for a raise. I'm ready to go to that next position. He'd go, you're right. You are. And nothing would ever happen. And then when she would address him again, and she'd say, hey, listen, I just want to talk about what's going on in the next couple of months. Can I go back to school to get another degree, to go up to that next position, or to get a pay raise? He'd say, either of those ideas are great. And yes, we'll cover everything. But even when she got done with the courses, there was no advances. He was gaslighting her. He was feeding her what she wanted to hear, but he had no integrity. He never followed her words. It was only after about a month of working together that she said, I have to leave, David. I'm petrified. I have a great paying job. I have great benefits, but I've been here for several years and there's been no movement at all. I want to be in a place where I can advance. Now, what's the solution? This is difficult, right? What's the solution to being in a toxic work environment? Well, number one is to leave. But before you leave, I have a client I'm working with right now who's in this position, an extremely toxic environment. And what I have her doing is she's networking her pants off. She's redoing her resume. So before you leave, make sure you have your ducks in a row. She's working with professional organizations. She is starting to work with a headhunter. She knows that she wants to be in a safer environment. And so she's doing the work to prepare herself. We have all kinds of people we work with in these environments. And I'm going to stop this right now and just tell you this. Follow your intuition. Watch what's going on. If there are shenanigans in the upper level management, meaning the gaslighting, right? The gossiping, the promising things and never coming through with them. You are in a toxic environment. So I want you to look at all these things, but then I'm going to leave you with this one point. Everyone plays a role, right? And so if you're codependent in nature, you may have stayed in a company too long. That is a toxic environment. And in that position, it can really beat the heck out of your self-confidence and self-esteem. I've worked with clients that have been in a toxic work environment for 5, 10, 15, even 20 years. And by the time they come in and realize it's not them that's crazy, that they're working for some very unprepared, or what we say sick individuals, they don't have the confidence to leave. Don't let it get that far. Save your confidence and self-esteem. You can always find another position. You may have to wait a little while. You may have to do a lot of preparation, but you don't need to stay in a toxic work environment. If I can help you at all, reach out to me at talkdavid.com. These are just some simple tips, some simple examples of what it's like to be in a toxic work environment, but I don't want anyone staying for longer than you have to. You want to reach me? It's at talkdavid.com. Have a beautiful day.